All right, welcome back to another episode of On the Clock. Today, I'm giving you guys the preview for the NFL Combine. There's a lot to look out for, a lot of fun players, and I'm going to start with the wide receiver position group. Right, there's two things you have to know when you're breaking down the receivers at the Combine. The first is that you're not supposed to double grade. Right, if you have a wide receiver who you know is fast, and you gave him a film on, when you're watching his tape, you say, an example being Xavier Worthy, the receiver from Texas. You watch his film and you say, okay, he's a mid-second round receiver. And the reason I'm making him a mid-second round receiver is because he's super fast. And then when he runs fast at the combine, you're going to see him on Twitter. You're going to see him on Instagram. Everyone's going to be saying, well, move Xavier Worthy up, move Xavier Worthy up. You got to hold still. You got to remember that you put him there in the first place because he was fast. And when you realize he's fast, it doesn't change anything. You knew that from the film, and the combine doesn't change much. The second piece of information you should always know when watching these receivers is that you're only looking for the high benchmarks, right? You're looking if a receiver runs much faster or performs in a drill much better than you thought he was going to, or runs much slower or performs much worse, right? Running a 4.4 versus a 4.43 shouldn't affect your grade that much, right? But if a receiver who you think is going to run a 4.5 runs a 4.4, or sorry, even runs a 4.3, right? Then you can, okay, let me go back to the tape, right? The combine is built as more of a regrader and a rechecker than it is, okay, I thought the receiver or I thought a player was this and the combine grade is different. Well, I guess everything's wrong. I guess I'm going to switch up all my grades to the combine. And, I've had that mistake a lot. And those are the two big things everyone should look at, especially when they're looking at the wide receivers at the NFL combine. So just going over the receivers, who you should know, who you should watch, right? You're going to be watching your TV and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of drills. So the players who have the most at stake. And for me, the two guys at the top have to be Xavier Legette from South Carolina and Keon Coleman from Florida State. Because recently, we've had this mold where receivers have been coming in big, fast, strong, these size speed receivers who've been winning with just overpowering the corners and over just being a better athlete than the player they're playing against in college. And then they get to the NFL and they're not able to do that. And well, are they even able to win on the same athletic ability as they did in college, right? The recent examples being Treylon Burks and Quentin Johnson. Both showed up at the combine and didn't perform as well as we thought. Yet both won in the first round, and so far both have been disappointing first-round picks, right? So Xavier Legette and Keon Coleman both face the issues of not having a full route tree, not running refined routes, winning off of contested catches and athletic dominance over routing a player up like someone like Ladd McConkey or someone like Jalen Polk might or someone like Rome Odunze might, right? These are all better route runners who could separate much more than a player like Keon Coleman or Xavier Legette might. So if they are going to be these super athletic players, you have to test very well, because if you don't test very well, I'm very confident that the NFL is slowly going to start to realize these mistakes and say, well, why are we taking these athletic freaks in the first round when they don't even test that athletically, right? And that's an example of looking at the film and saying, well, we're drafting him off the film, but his combine grades don't match that. So maybe we need to go back to the film and say, why is he winning, right? And then at the top, the two top receivers in the draft aren't testing. So Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, very unfortunate, but both of them are staying out of the drills. Both of them, I think, would have put up some historic number, right? An RNS score of somewhere high nines, performed very well, but neither of them are testing. So there's a bunch of other guys to look at. I think Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, he's going to be excellent. He's another size, height, speed guy, but I think he's going to test much better than a Xavier Legette or a Keon Coleman because he's much more explosive. So if you're looking for a guy who could test very well, I say Brian Thomas Jr. I say Texas's Xavier Worthy because I think he may be the fastest receiver in the class. Ever since he stepped on the field at Texas, he's been super fast. 40 time, I think he timed in high school was ridiculous. His three cones is going to be awesome. Honestly, his vert numbers, I think, are going to be great. I think Roman Wilson's three cones going to be excellent. I think he is a great change of direction. And then another guy who's been on the downfall recently is Devontae Walker. Devontae Walker has been falling in all the consensus mock drafts. He fell. I think he wasn't even a second-round pick in our recent Toilets of Titles mock draft, which you could check out on toiletsofTitles.com. But he fell after a really disappointing Senior Bowl, and he came in as arguably the highest wide receiver prospect in Alabama. And, he's 6'3", super fast, long. He has all the abilities to be a great vertical threat, but he came into that Senior Bowl and wasn't separated consistently, and his hands were poor. And those aren't going to change at the Senior Bowl, right? Or sorry, at the Combine. He's not going to come to the Combine and suddenly everyone's going to forget the fact that he drops a lot of passes and that he can't run routes well. But what he can do is remind people why scouts liked him in the first place, why he's just on a different athletic plan than these other day 2, day 3 receivers. Because if he runs in the 4.3s at 6'3", and if he's if he scores in 9.6, 9.7 RAS, which means you're in the 96th or 97th percentile of athletes, are you really passing on him for these other day 2 receivers who, may have performed better at the Senior Bowl, but the NFL, regardless of whether you like him or if you don't, like I say that there's a lot on the line for him, because if he doesn't perform well, he could be a day 3 receiver because there wouldn't be that much separating him from anyone else in this class. Another guy is Malachi Corley, the wide receiver from Western Kentucky, who gets a lot of comparisons to Deebo Samuel. Right, he got those comparisons before the Senior Bowl. He makes a lot of guys miss. He breaks tackles. Super talented yak receiver, but doesn't provide much so far as a route runner, as a separator. And if he's going to be that guy, he has to perform well in all the drills. He has to be an athletic freak, because are you getting a Deebo Samuel, or are you getting a Laviska Shenault, right? Who everyone thought was going to be this Deebo Samuel, Percy Harvin type of receiver, right? And Laviska Shenault didn't perform well at the combine, and that's a perfect example of a guy who isn't the same type of athlete that succeeds in the NFL as might succeed in college. You need the juice. You need the explosiveness down to down. You need to be shifty. You need to have juice on everything you do to be an elite athlete in the NFL. Maybe you could break tackles. Maybe you can make a corner or defender miss once or twice. But if you want to rely on being a receiver who wins on yak and wins on creating big plays after the catch, you need to perform well on the combine. So Malachi Corley needs a big week. Another one who struggled in the Senior Bowl was Brendan Rice. I think he could fall to day 3 if he doesn't perform well. And then after that, I think there's a lot of smaller dudes, a lot of day 3 who could push themselves into day 2 with an excellent combine. Right, Malik Washington, who was the Shrine Bowl standout, was not at the Senior Bowl, but he's been rising up everything. Everyone's talking about him as this Shrine Bowl legend, right? Who's should be a 2nd round or 3rd round pick already. And I'm not quite there yet, but if Malik Washington comes and shows that he's one of the better athletes, he has the tape, he has the Shrine Bowl, and then he'll have the combine stats to really make that case as a day 2 receiver. So he's another guy to watch out for. And then the last guys are Jamari Thrash and Jacob Cowing, who both, I think, had a slightly disappointing Senior Bowl. They weren't able to show as much of the separation skills that made them such highly touted college players. But once again, they're shifty, they're fluid. Not only do I think they'll perform well in the 40-yard dash, but I think they could also perform well in the 3-cone, in the shuttle, in a lot of the smaller drills. And I think Jacob Cowing is going to explode the vertical. And I think they're going to, not stand out in the rest of the group, but show that they belong athletically in the day as day 2 prospects, even if they are smaller receivers who, is not exactly what the NFL is looking for in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round. So a bunch of guys to look out for. I hope it made it easier. And make sure to check me out on Mr. Irrelevant on Twitter, Coach, and the rest of the Toilets to Titles crew, because we'll be posting all week updates from the combine and who to watch, right? We're posting graphics every day, top 10, who to watch at the combine. And until the next episode, enjoy.